What's that? Hi, Susan. Okay. That's all I'll say. You'll hear the rest soon. We're gonna start soon. Take your seats. We're about to start. Welcome, everyone, and good evening and good Yontif to all those who are here with us on Ziering Field, and to all those, many more than I can see on the screen right now, who are joining us via Zoom, and those who I have no idea who you are who are joining via live stream. Hi, Marizon. I like welcoming as many people as possible digitally by name. Again, if I'm not calling your name, it's just because I don't happen to see you, because I'm not seeing everyone. So welcome and good Yontif to the Emirates, and to Annie Spar, and I assume Elon as well is somewhere around, and to Larry Rosenstein, and to Carol Katz, and to the Breyers, and to Lou Peters, and to the Nimoys, and to Tzvi Resnick, and to Rabbi Susan Lemley and John and Tignis, and to the Mamzi family, and to Michelle Wilson, and to Dr. Robin Shafran, and to Gretchen, and to the Greenbergs, and to the Hymansons, and to Beryl Arbit, and to Wayne Levin, and to the Finstons, and to Bella and Howard Kapp, and to Melissa Salama, and to the Linus family, and to Irving Skolnick, and to the Nemitz family, and many, many, many more. The screen just, and all of those too. Because if I kept reading them, which I want to, I'd have to shorten my sermon. I'm not going to do that. So, welcome and good Yontif. It's really nice to see as many faces here as I'm seeing. We're not back completely, but we're here with a full spirit and a full heart, and ready for these next 25 hours of solemnity and also joy, hopefully some learning and some introspection, and recreating this community, not from scratch, because we didn't disappear in the last 18 months, but we fragmented, and it's nice to have this many Beth Am Jews together in person and digitally, in addition to those who are joining the sanctuary and those joining on Corning 8 to observe Yom Kippur. If you haven't yet put on your talit, you can turn to page 202 and say the bracha, the only time that we say this bracha towards the evening, but we're supposed to say it just before sunset if possible. So you would stand and say that bracha, and even if you're not saying that bracha, I invite you all to rise as we open the ark on page 204. And I'm going to invite Gil Hatzroni and Richard Levy and Levy, I'm so sorry. I actually knew that one. I don't know what I was thinking. And Jennifer Lowe to come hold the Torah scrolls for the first recitation of Kol Nidre. And you can follow along. We start in 204 as Cantor Chorny begins us with the verse Or Zaru Ala Tzadik, that there is light sowed for the righteous. I said something very short about this at the end of services on Rosh Hashanah. Perhaps we start with those words to hold out a carrot to us, that if we can reach towards righteousness, there might be a reward of illumination. And Ul Yishvei Lev Simcha, if we can straighten our hearts, there's joy at the end of that path as well. And then we ask permission to pray amongst a group of sinners, which however righteous we are also that. And then the Kol Nidre paragraphs on the next page, page 204.
Or Zaru Ala Tzadik, Ul Yishvei Lev Simcha. Or Zaru Ala Tzadik, Ul Yishvei Lev Simcha. Lishiva shel ma'ala, Shiva shel mata, Haledat hamakom, Eldat hakal, Anu matirin litvalel im avaryanim. Shiva shel ma'ala, Shiva shel mata, Haledat hamakom, Ve'aldat hakal, Anu matirin leitvalel im avaryanim. Shiva shel ma'ala, Shiva shel mata, Haledat hamakom, Ve'aldat hakal, Anu matirin leitvalel im avaryanim. Ooh. וחרמי ויקונמי וכינויי וכינוסי ושבועות.
Din darna udehishtabana udeacharimna vedasana al nafshatana
מיום כיפורים מזה
עד יום כיפורים הבא
עלינו
לטובה. כל הון יכרתנה והון, כל הון יהון שרן. שביעין, שביעיתין.
בטלין ומבוטלין
לשרירים קיימין נדרנה לנדרי ויסרנה לאסרי שבועות.
For the second recitation of Kol Nidre, we'll invite Tyson Roberts and Naomi Cohen and Dr. Erica Rothblum to hold a Sefer Torah. In the back of the tent, is the sound good? Okay.
Kol Nidre v'Yisarei v'Charamei v'Kunamei v'Chinuyei v'Kinusei ושבועות. דין דרנה Shatana Mihom Kippurim Ze Ad Yom Kippurim Haba Aleinu Litova Ulehona Hicharatna Vehon Ulehon Yahon Shiran Shivin Shivin Tilin Umevutalin Lasharirin Milah Lakayamin Nitrana La Nidre Mesarana La Hisare Ushavuatana La Shavuot.
And for the third recitation of Kol Nidre, we'd like to honor Cindy Levy and Dan Harrison and Joanna Kassir. If you come hold a Torah scroll.
Kol Nidre V'Yisarei V'Charamei V'Konamei V'Chinuyei V'Kinusei Shavuot Din Eterna Udishtabana Udacharina Midasarna Al Nafshatana Miyom Kippurim Ze Ad Yom Kippurim Hava Hicharat navehon ulehon yehon shiran shivikin shivitin v'teilin u'mevutalin lo shavririn v'la kayamin nidverana la nidre sarana la sare ujivu atano la V'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael lelager hagar b'tocham ki lecholam bishgagam.
We repeat. V'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael v'lager hagar betocham ki lechol ha'am bishkagah.
V'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael lelager hagar b'tocham ki lecholam bishgagam.
In English, the entire congregation of the people Israel shall be forgiven, as well as the stranger who dwells among them, for all have erred.
ונסלח לכל הדת בני ישראל, ולגר הגר בתוכם, כי לכולם תשגגה.
We repeat, v'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael v'lager hagar betocham ki lechol ha'am bishkagah.
סלח נא לעוון העם הזה כגודל חסדך, וכאשר נסעת לעם הזה ממצרים ועד הנה, ושם נאמר, ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך.
Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha.
ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך.
Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha.
ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך.
Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם
שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. The Sifrei Torah returned to the ark as soon as they're in the ark. You may be seated. If a Natalie or a Cheryl or someone in that category is hearing this and someone can get a message that we might need some more chairs in the back, we'll see how many actually seats we have as soon as people sit, and we can raise hands if you have empty seats next to you. There are empty seats, but everybody who wants to sit should be able to sit. So if you're hearing that and you can get that message to a few people, that would be great. There are actually more empty seats. So just raise your hand if you're near one or more empty seats, so the people who are looking for seats, wherever you see hands, there are at least a few seats there. So I'll give a few minutes to get people situated. Front rows are wide open, by the way. I don't take it personally. Okay. Many of you are not going to like this sermon. So I have your attention. And yet I've determined that even if a small portion of you are paying attention by the end, and even a small portion of that portion might make even a small change in your lives as a result, I might consider it to be one of the most important sermons I've ever given. And maybe, just maybe, the sermon you least want to hear is the one you most need to. But let me step back and give some context. A cow was brutally slaughtered at my wedding on the dance floor as part of the shtick, not a real one. But the symbol was clear. Two friends of mine dressed up in a cow costume, and the third came as the shochet and shechted the cow right in the middle of the opening hora. Some of you were there and saw it. That's how meat-centric and fleishik and steak-frenzied I and my friend cohort were at the time. We'd emphasize the word basar, which meant meat or flesh, every time it appeared in the Birkat Hamazon. Hu notein lechem lechol. We saved as students for steak dinners, and we nearly named it a national holiday when Le Marais, a high-end kosher French steakhouse, opened in New York City in 1995. On our honeymoon, Javi and I stayed at a vegan bed and breakfast in Ireland for Shabbat, because there was no kosher option, believe it or not. And then we lampooned to ourselves the aggressive propaganda literature that was left in the room for visitors to read, helping them convince themselves and their parents to give up eating meat. The proprietors told us how thrilled they were to learn that they were hosting a religious Jewish couple for Shabbat. Why? Because it meant to them that one less chicken would be eaten that weekend. We thought they were nuts. I grew up as a traditional Ashkenazi, New York-based Jew, and absolutely loved the Jewish diet. My grandmother's gribbinus, which I think my pancreas is still processing 35 years later. Fleishik kreplach to break the fast. Pastrami sandwiches on Visitor's Day at Ramah. And endless meals of scrambled eggs and blintzes and cream cheese on a toasted white bagel and pounds of lox. I even managed a kosher deli in college. So a significant percentage of my campus calories accumulated in the form of bagel dogs, turkey subs, and meat knishes. You get the picture. This pattern continued into my 30s and then changed abruptly. As part of research I was doing for a sermon back in New York, I learned things about meat production that were hard to unlearn. And I essentially stopped eating red meat on the dime and have barely returned and barely missed it since. A few years later, already living here in LA, I learned unsavory things about chicken farming and slaughter, particularly and sadly within the kosher slaughterhouses here and in Israel. And so I basically gave up eating poultry. At the time, this was a personal and private decision. It was made primarily for ethical reasons. And while Jewish values and the mitzvah of tsar ba'alei chayim, prohibiting us from causing pain to animals, should and do impact our consumption of food, I never pounded the pulpit on this topic. I kept it quiet. I answered questions when asked. But I chose not to preach about it, because it's hard to talk about this topic without coming off as preachy. In fact, as much as I try to avoid it, I know I run the risk of doing that just now. The ethics of food and its impact on the animals we choose to eat still move me. Yet the ideas I want to share with you this evening have much less to do with the lives and welfare of cows and chickens, and much more to do with the lives and welfare of all of you. Please hear this sermon as a love letter, coming from the mouth and the heart of one who cares for you all dearly and wants to share healthy life with you for as long as possible. Within the last year, based on abundant research and reading I've done, I have moved almost entirely to a whole food, plant-based diet. My 25-year-old self is either laughing or crying right now while munching on some steak tartare. Mostly, I now eat and thoroughly enjoy some combination of vegetables and fruits and whole grains and beans and nuts and very, very little added oil. I don't call it vegan. As one of the writers who has inspired me said it, French fries are vegan. And French fries, I'm sad to say, are pretty toxic. Over the last months, I thought of all the topics I could address to you on this day. I considered and then rejected discussing geopolitics, or a year two of the pandemic and trying to repackage last year's message of hope and light into a new format this year. Or what Jewish values might say about the state of American democracy, or how our micro decisions to live comfortable lives are cumulatively making macro impacts on our society and our climate and contributing to a more dangerous world, or any number of worthy topics ripped from the headlines. But I kept coming back to this topic, to the possibility that I might, it's a might, nudge some of the people I care most about in the world to nudge their cuisine in the direction that I am truly convinced has the greatest chance of keeping illness at bay and leading to a long, healthy life. In my research, I came across this fascinating data point. Did you know that the simple act of replacing hot dogs and French fries with lentil patties and kale salad will reduce by 90% what little joy you have left in your life? I want you to know that I binge on lentils and kale, and I'm very happy. My core text so far, among others, has a doozy of a title, No Subtlety. It's written by Dr. Michael Greger, and it's called, perhaps aptly, How Not to Die. I won't waste words in this sermon on the details, but I do commend to you the more than 550 pages of science and research and recipes, as well as a phenomenal documentary called Forks Over Knives. But the central theory, backed up by thousands of studies, and perhaps most significantly the China study from the 1970s, is that the most reliable way to keep most preventable diseases at bay and to live a life of health and longevity is to eat nearly exclusively a whole food, plant-based diet. Among the tens of thousands of data points, one compelling one is the drop in negative health markers in the blood and concomitant mortality when small populations have been forced either by war or famine, not of their own choice, to take on this approach to food for a distinct period of time. And the changes are quick. And similarly compelling, although distressing, is what happens when previous healthy societies and cultures, whose local cuisine had been for centuries mostly plant-based, end up moving towards what some refer to aptly as SAD, the standard American diet. Heart disease skyrockets, and diabetes, of course. And because everything in the body is connected, and every system essentially relies on good vascularization, the detritus deposited in the blood via SAD wallops a person's chances of avoiding not only heart attack and hypertension and stroke, but also many cancers and dementia and other debilitating diseases. Nothing is a guarantee, of course. There are whole food, plant-based eaters who tragically contract awful diseases randomly and die young. And there are, as we all know, individuals around us who smoke and eat steak and fried foods towards and beyond their century mark. But the big data do not lie. And for now, I am convinced, and for now, I am committed. Now, at this point, even if you're intrigued, you might be wondering, why do I need to hear this from my rabbi? What is his relationship to my food and to my health and on Yom Kippur? Good questions. Thank you for asking them. I have two primary answers, one blunt and one more subtle. Here's the blunt one. You and I are in a trusting and covenanted relationship. Once you invited me to be your rabbi and let me into your life, you invited me all the way in. And so I'm implicated in your life trajectory. You have asked for my presence and support when you get sick. I will sit at your hospital bedside and pray with you as you or your loved ones confront illness. I sanctify the births in your family and wish the babies a long and healthy life. And I try to bring solace at deaths. I know it is strange to say it out loud, but this is true. When many of you die, I will be there to bring you honor and your family solace. So why ought I not share what I consider to be critical insight that might keep at bay some of the very illnesses for which you might ask me to add your name to a Misha Berach list, and which might delay by a considerable amount of time the day on which I am to come and recite the final Vidui prayer with you as life ebbs away. I know it's blunt, but those are the contours of the sacred bond that we share, and in some ways deep in what I consider rabbinic work to be, focusing on the entirety of the life of my community members. I cannot not share this with you. And the second reason, in what way are Jews in relationships with their rabbis about food? In numerous ways. This just raises the stakes a bit and maybe restores Jewish eating back to a meaningfulness that for many, including myself, I will admit, has been elusive. Many of you email me with questions like this. My dairy fork fell into my meat pot as I was cooking. What do I do? If I now eat kitniot on Pesach, can I buy milled flaxseed before the holiday without a hechsher and use it? All such questions are in the normative category of what a Jew asks the rabbi, and we call this category kashrut. And don't get me wrong, I love those questions. I appreciate how conscientious and detailed-oriented so many of you are about the specifics and the holiness of kashrut, of intentional and observant Jewish eating. But as I think of what Judaism has to offer the world and all of us about eating, whether or not the triangle K hechsher is legit, and how many times broccoli heads must be washed before we can be sure they are free of bugs, represents pennies on the dollar. There is more at the core to Jewish eating. We all know the word kosher, but do we know its true meaning? The root in Hebrew is kaf shin resh, kasher, and the best way to translate it is the word fit, as in fitness. To work out in modern Hebrew is la'asot kosher, essentially to exercise in our beautiful language is to do the kosher thing for you and your body. And so whatever your current cuisine happens to be, I hope you'll join me in at least considering the fact that it's a religious paradox at best and travesty at worst, that you can eat food stamped and determined to be kasher, fit, when what it may do to your body is the antithesis of it. I am a proud, religious, observant Jew, and I struggle with what kashrut has become in some parts of the modern, industrialized, commercialized era. This is no longer the kashrut of the shtetl. Rabbi Lucas and I used to muse all the time that we observed kashrut, and we also rued and hated the label hunting and the low-grade kashrut mafia of Pico Boulevard, and the mistreatment of animals and workers that are sadly integral to the modern world of keeping kosher. I fear that we have lost a holy foundation of biblical and rabbinic kashrut. I am not advocating, God forbid, for jettisoning kashrut, but I'm all for reclaiming it so that its menu matches its meaning. Replacing or at least elevating an obsessive search for microscopic contaminants or listening to only certain rabbis' approval should be a passionate return to the essential idea that kashrut should be a Jew's way of eating that which most venerates God and God's loan to us of this fragile and vulnerable body. So yes, I think I as a rabbi ought to have something to say about that. Nor am I the first or anywhere near close to being the most important rabbi or Jew to claim that consuming mostly plants should be the highest form of eating. Perhaps you've heard of Rav Kook, the luminous first Ashkenazi chief rabbi of pre-state Palestine. Rav Kook famously valorized exercise and maintaining one's physical health as a prime religious obligation, a mitzvah itself. And a compilation of his writing entitled A Vision of Vegetarianism and Peace depicts a progression guided by Torah law towards a vegetarian society. Consider this powerful quote from him. The power of the soul is very much dependent on the state of the body and its health. We have been preoccupied by spirituality, and we have forgotten the sanctity of the body. We have forgotten that our flesh is holy, no less than our souls. How could the author of those words, or anyone inspired by them, not struggle at least a little bit when seeing an OU symbol on frozen chicken nuggets and a bag of beastly? His words about refraining from meat were as clear as his words exhorting physical health. He wrote that, quote, in the future ideal state, the messianic state, just as at the initial period, people and animals will not eat flesh. And he believed that even if the temple were to be rebuilt, only inanimate produce grown from the earth could and would be offered as a sacrifice. Rav Kook wove together the ethical, the physical, and the spiritual, and he envisioned a Jewish community in the not-so-distant future celebrating Shabbat and Chagim and daily sustenance without taking the life of any animal, nor harming one's own life with anything other than the most wholesome of foods. But Jewish wisdom on this topic is actually older, way older, than the 19th and 20th century Rav Kook. Classic rabbinic interpretation of the story of the flood, which we'll read in a few weeks, is that the Torah's giving humanity the right to eat meat after the flood was a begrudging concession. The Garden of Eden was the Garden of Vegan. But because the generation that warranted the flood was so wicked with violence and bloodshed, God says here, if you must take out your bloodthirsty instincts, do not do it on one another. At least do it on animals. And at that, in a humane way. Now, we are thousands of years of organic growth of Jewish cuisine and habits since then. But if you really want to focus on what the true original Jewish threshold was for eating meat, if you really think that that's the only way you will be kept from committing murder, if that's the way to satisfy and sublimate your desire to destroy a creation of God, enjoy the hamburger. But rabbinic wisdom basically said if you think you can avoid that violence without it, then you should do so. And while he wasn't a rabbi, Einstein knew a little bit about science. And consider this quote. He said, "Nothing will benefit human health and increase the chances of survival on Earth as much as the evolution to a vegetarian diet." Even pre-modern societies knew something about the link between our food choices and our health. I came across an ancient Egyptian proverb that went like this: 1/4 of our food keeps us alive. 3/4 of our food keeps our physicians alive. I want our doctors and our physicians to live and thrive and be well, and our doctors, I am convinced, want nothing more than for us to need them less. Now, a few years ago, I might have thought it a fool's errand to imagine a large swath of people that I know or the society around us eschewing the eating of meat, whether for ethical reasons or personal health reasons. But we now live in the age of the Impossible Burger and Beyond Sausages, and stories like this one told to me by a Beth Am member who said that now on taco nights at home, since they started adding the Impossible meat option, the kids never choose the ones with beef. They've just lost the taste of it. And the same member told me just this week, and this is either the sign that the apocalypse is upon us or the messianic era is nigh, in Europe, they will soon unveil, wait for it, the McPlant. A full Big Mac, fully vegan. Now, it might take a while to turn Texas around. To a lot of things. But the proprietors of Cussin's Cottage in Ireland, that vegan bed and breakfast from my honeymoon, are likely thrilled at humanity's progress in the last 2 decades. They don't even need to host religious Jews at their place for fewer chickens to die on Shabbat. There are evocative appeals to plant-based eating that speak to one's altruism. Choose the vegetable and save the animal suffering in death and in life. Choose the fruit and save the environment. Both of these exhortations are in line with Jewish values. And as we in Southern California suffer through yet another drought, I'll share just one of thousands of worthy statistics. Water usage data suggests that if Americans avoided eating meat just 1 day each week, they could save an amount of water equivalent to the entire flow of the Colorado each year. More than enough water to alleviate the region's shortages. That's how much water is used and perhaps wasted on the production of meat. And altruism and sparing animals and healing our warming and desiccated planet are worthy things. But so is taking care of the self. And it's that appeal that I spotlight most loudly today. Today, Yom Kippur is a day of great vitality. It's claiming another year of life on this rotating orb. But it's also, believe it or not, a day of death in a way. It's a day of avoiding it if we lean into the liturgy with our penitence and our devotions. And also, evocatively, it's a day of eerily imitating it. Many of us are robed in simple white, as we will be for all eternity. We don't eat, we transcend our bodily needs as if we are released souls. We are for 24 hours in an elaborate, ritualized dress rehearsal for the very moment that we actually hope we've staved off for at least one more year as a result of what we've achieved through this ritual. Life is in our grasp today, and death is on our mind today. Can this be a moment you make a commitment to inscribe yourself in the book of life for this year and hopefully many more to come? Transformations individually and societally are rare, and they take time. And as I mentioned, my own food evolution is decades in the making. Nor am I a prophet and have certainty what I will or will not eat 3, 5, 15 years down the line. But much as it would make me happy and proud, I expect no radical shifts in food choices in all of your lives, or the array of what we serve here at Beth Am and Pressman Academy. But I would celebrate it, if you're still listening, by the end. And I will celebrate some change among some of you, some of the time. And as you make your Jewish commitments to God, to others, but also to yourself today, and especially if you are struggling with what I'm sharing, I encourage you to digest these ideas less in the realm of what you will hold back from, and more towards what you will add to your consumption of food. To paraphrase the great Michael Pollan, eat real food, mostly plants. It might be kashrut at its loftiest. So read the book. Again, it is called How Not to Die. Talk to your physicians. Give this idea a chance. And if you're not prepared to go whole hog on this, perhaps my words, which I hope you know are shared with love, can help you think through the fact that eating healthily, at the very least, is a Jewish value. It's probably a Jewish obligation. And doing that one thing better this year may be the most important Jewish decision you make today for God, for the planet, for the animals, for yourself, for life. I wish you a meaningful fast and a Gemar Chatima Tova. We are going to continue, if you have not yet chosen to leave Temple Beth Am forever, with the Baruch Hu. Would you look at the time? Please rise for the Baruch Hu on page 27 to the beautiful, iconic music that we hear 3 nights a year, after which you may be seated.
Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai Hamivorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai. Mavir Yom Umevi Laila Umavdil Vein Yom Uvein Laila Adonai Tzvaot Shemo El Chai V'Kayam Tamnidim Lo Chaleinu Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai Amari V'Aravim Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Mechav Yem Chayenu Me'orech Yameinu Uvahem Negei Yomam V'layla V'avatecha Al Tasir Mimenu Le'olamim Baruch Atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kavod Malichuto Le'olam Va'ed. Adonai Elohechem Emet V'emunah Kol Sov V'gayam Alinu Ki Hu Adonai Elohim. Malchuto Beratzon Kibelu Alehem Moshe B'nei Yisrael L'chanu Shira V'simcha Rabba V'yamiru Echulam V'chamocha B'elim Adonai V'kamocha Nedar B'kodesh Nur Tehilot Hosei V'eleh Malchutecha Rovanecha Bukei Hayam Lifnei Moshe Zeli Anu V'yameru Adonai Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed V'ne'emar Yivatah Adonai et Yaakov U'Elom Miyad Chazak Mimenu Baruch Atah Adonai Galei Yisrael Hashiveinu Adonai Eloheinu L'shem L'vayot. Ushmor Tzeiteinu Uvoeinu L'chaim u'shalom yatav v'yad olam ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו, ויהל כל עמו ישראל, ויהל ירושלים.
Please rise, second paragraph, 212.
כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם, לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם, לפני אדוני תטהרו. יתקדש שמי רבו,
Amen.
וילמד יברח קירותי, וימליך מלכותי, בחיי חום ובימי חום, ובחיי דרכו בית ישראל בגלה, ובזמן מקריב
ואמרו אמן, יהי שמי רבא מבורך, לעולם לעולם לעולמיה יתברך.
יתברך וישבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי תקודשה בריחו לילה לילה, מכל ברכתה ושירתה
תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא ואמרו amen. The Amidah is said in a quiet whisper beginning page 213. I hear beautiful harmonies out there. If you're still davening, please continue at your own pace. Before we continue with Slicho, which begin on 223, it's my great honor to introduce to the Bima my dear friend, a man who loves his Judaism and loves this community so passionately and works on a level that you cannot really fathom to sustain it and to perpetuate it. The president of Temple Beth Am, Stuart Tochner, for some evening remarks and also to give the exact menu of the Tochner breakfast tomorrow night, with making sure he heard my sermon.
So I don't know about the exact menu for tomorrow night, but I do appreciate. Can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me now? So I don't know about the exact menu for tomorrow night, but I do appreciate the opportunity to speak in opposition and to spend the next 14 minutes in praise of the McPlant sandwich. I think it sounds really tasty, actually. It's, so thank you, Rabbi Kligfeld. So leading into the high holiday season last year, I was sick. I had a problem with my foot. You may have seen me kind of limping around here a little bit. But it soon developed into a blood issue, and I came here, spoke at our fairly abbreviated services, but mainly I was at home. I was immobilized, somewhat drugged out, and watching the proceedings on the couch. Anyway, as you can recall, we were really in the infancy of our digital remote services back then. I remember sitting on the couch and surfing through various high holiday offerings from around the Jewish world. And I came upon a choral rendition of a prayer that means, much to Betty and to me. Ahavat Olam, it was a version that she grew up with at VBS, but it's only sung once a year there on Erev Rosh Hashanah. It's a beautiful tune. Anyway, I found this video, and I can't express how emotional that was for me. It was a combination of the music itself, together with my own state of vulnerability at that moment, a feeling that I was on the cusp of aging, and probably the general sadness of how much things had already changed even by that point. It was a deeply powerful moment, listening and singing along with that nusach, probably the most powerful such moment of last year's experience. It stays with me still. I mention this not so much to atone for the countless ways that all that channel surfing violated the Chag. There was plenty of that, to be sure. Rather, I mention it as an example of how it is possible, despite all our common sense to the contrary, that powerful religious, communal, and emotional experiences can be transmitted and experienced virtually, particularly when circumstances simply demand it. On the one hand, last year's abrupt change of practice was unprecedented. Everything changed with the pandemic, obviously. But on the other hand, this complete readjustment wasn't at all unique. If you think about it, everything we take as normative in modern Jewish practice is the result of wrenching change caused by cataclysmic events. All of the movements of modern Judaism, for example, including our own conservative Judaism, were born out of the debates as to how Judaism must respond to the advent of modern life. And of course, all of Judaism as we know it today, rabbinic Judaism, is itself a reinvention, a response to the greatest calamity that Judaism as a religion has ever known, the destruction of the Second Temple. We are a people of adaptability, reinvention, and innovation. And even this moment itself, Yom Kippur, is one of rededication. Atonement itself is an act of beginning anew. Innovation, finding ways to access the heart of traditional Judaism and to bring it alive, is at the core of what we do here at Temple Beth Am. Our library minyan, nearly 50 years on now, was born from a simple, powerful idea. A rising generation of knowledgeable young Jewish leaders creating a lay-led traditional egalitarian minyan, coming at a particular moment in time when many craved a move away from high synagogue formalism toward a more grounded, authentic style of egalitarian Judaism. Simple in concept, but revolutionary in its meeting that particular moment. Our collective history shows that for the most part, innovation doesn't just happen. It is often some calamitous moment, be it that emergence from the late 60s and early 70s in the case of the Minyan, or the destruction of the Second Temple itself that spurs the most significant innovation, which is arguably where we are right now. Rarely in most of our lives have we encountered moments that so profoundly alter our daily lives as this pandemic. The way that we used to interact socially, in our employment, here at Shul, has been radically altered these past 18 months. There are children in our community who have gone well over a year, a significant part of their lives, learning in a remote environment. Social interaction has become a hybrid of masked and unmasked encounters, sometimes approaching familiarity, but always intentional and often simply tiring. From the beginning of this pandemic, we knew here at Temple Beth Am that we needed to address this crisis head on, to turn our programming around in ways that we never dreamed would be necessary. So we did everything we could think of to service our members, both in person and remotely. Rabbi Kligfeld directed the senior staff to produce perhaps the most innovative programs of their respective careers. To give you an idea, Rabbi Schatz produced 2 fully digital Elul learning series and countless other classes over the last couple of years. Under her leadership, our amazing director of programming, Leah Mendelbaum, produced special interest events like sports nights and an amazing series of virtual travels around the country and around the world. Cantor Chorny not only continued providing the musical direction of our shul, as well as spiritual guidance through her speaking and her writing, she spearheaded our social justice efforts as we searched for the right tone and content in response to last summer's social unrest. Rabbi Shapiro kept our younger members engaged in social and holiday programs. He also launched a new TBA Center for Spiritual Growth to bring together the numerous points of connection within our community focused on Jewish spirituality. And over on the school side of the Jacob Pressman Academy, under the leadership of our head of school, Dr. Erica Rothblum, there were more successes than I can possibly name. Suffice it to say that 100% of our 8th grade students were admitted to their first choice high school. And our enrollment increased 10% in our day school this year, expanding from 310 students in 2019 to 342 students in 2020 and 2021. All of this, mind you, in a pandemic, during which our school maintained one of the safest COVID protocols in the city while being among the first schools in each grade to safely open for in-person learning. These were Herculean efforts by our clergy and our senior staff. Members told me throughout the past year that how much they appreciated their shul being there for them and reaching out to them. I believe that few synagogues anywhere so successfully met the challenge of this pandemic head on. So, all of this got us thinking. Part of what we have started this year needs to be part of the permanent landscape of shul life. But which parts? Sure, we love the idea of a midweek online travel program to relax at home after a hard day at work. But surely nothing digital or remote can take the place of a Shabbat Kiddush in the building with cholent, shared every single week with the warmth of our community, right? Yet going back to that moment that I experienced last year, and that others of you may be experiencing at this very moment, what does this revolution in technology mean to those who are unable to join us here personally? What does it mean for those of us who are infirm, physically or emotionally? To what extent can we now be more inclusive than we were before? An absent member should not be a forgotten member. To address this unprecedented issue, we needed to explore what all of these rapid technological changes might mean for the long-term viability of Temple Beth Am and of synagogues in general. What does it mean to be a synagogue in the digital age? Who are our potential members? Is there a permanent place for digital prayer in our lives? Is there room for both? What is our ongoing responsibility toward our disabled members and our potential disabled members? What does it mean for a community if a significant part of our interaction is remote? Should that even be a goal? What about reserving a place in our orbit for truly observant, traditional, egalitarian prayer, the cornerstone of which we have always offered? Or is the ideal some sort of hybrid between remote and in-person interaction? How, in other words, can or should we harness technology to uplift as many souls as possible within our community? An absent member should not be a forgotten member. As a side note, I will observe that this has always been the ethos of Temple Beth Am, particularly for this Kol Nidre service. Longtime members will recall that this was a deep belief of Rabbi Pressman. And these very Kol Nidre services used to be broadcast on radio to those who were at home and unable to attend. Temple Beth Am was quite literally decades ahead of its time on this issue. To begin to address these questions, we applied this year for a grant from the Jewish Community Foundation to help address these long-term strategic issues. Through our intrepid executive director, Cheryl Goldman, we explained our vision to recalibrate Temple Beth Am to meet the challenges of a post-pandemic future. We have obtained that grant, and we have, with those resources, hired a consultant, an expert in this emerging hybrid field of synagogue strategic visioning and digital communications, Rabbi Jeremy Marquise, to help us systematically address these issues. Late last month, Rabbi Marquise led our board through a several-hour process where we took the time to go back to these fundamental issues. Who are we? To whom do we appeal? Does our big tent approach to Jewish communities still work in this hyper-political age? Over the past 12 to 24 months, we will work with Rabbi Marquise to fine-tune our specific needs. And once we have accomplished that, our board has already approved the hiring of a full-time director of strategy and marketing to ensure that this path forward will not abate. It will impact everything we do, from our membership outreach, to our communications with you, to the programs we offer, to the conduct of these very services. Over time, using this strategic approach, we will work to incorporate the very best of what we have learned these past 18 months into the way that we operate Temple Beth Am, so that 2 years from now, God willing, we will be a better shul than we were 2 years ago, and that we will serve you, our membership, that much better. True, we will in fact need to continue to react to changes to COVID numbers and protocols in the near term, just as we did for this service tonight. Unfortunately, none of that is going away anytime soon. But we are pivoting now to address the long-term impacts of all of these short-term serial modifications so that Temple Beth Am remains the strategic leader within the conservative movement that it has always been. And we will need you, our members, to join us in this journey, to provide us with input. Our annual campaign will begin soon. You'll hear about it through email, through regular mail, through Kol Ha'am. More than ever before, we need your support as we continue to redefine ourselves for this post-pandemic world. And so, we will not miss this moment for the golden opportunity that it is. We will emerge stronger, more relevant, and more of a holy community than ever before. My wish for all of us, and particularly for everyone watching, for whatever reason, from your couches at home, is that we have a good and healthy year. And as for those moments when health stubbornly eludes us and we are confined to our couches and even our beds at home, may we even in those times find new and enriching ways of staying connected with our community. Shana Tova, Gemar Chatzima Tova.
Stuart, we are so blessed for your mind, your focus, your leadership, and your love of this community. Thank you, Stuart. Shana Tova. We're going to continue with our davening on page 223. It's beautiful reverse acrostic that lyrically in 3 lines at a time traces the whole range of emotions and actions that we're going to do from the evening to the morning till when the stars come out tomorrow night. Rabbi Chorny will lead us in a few of the paragraphs at the top and then switch to the bottom. You can remain seated for this.
Yale, yale, tachanunenu me'eretz
Ve'yavo Shabbateinu miboker. Ve'yera erinu neinu ad arev. Ve'yera erinu neinu ad arev. Ya'ale ya'ale koleinu me'erev. Ve'yavot tzidkateinu miboker. Ve'yera pidyoneinu ad arev. Ve'yera pidyoneinu ad arev. Ya'ale ya'ale inu yenu me'erev. Ve'yavo selichateinu miboker. Ve'yera enakateinu ad arev. Ve'yera enakateinu ad arev. We'll pick up 6 lines from the bottom.
Yale, yale, dovkeinu me'erev. Ve'yavo gileinu miboker. Ve'yera kashateinu ad arev. Ve'yera bakashateinu ad arev. Yale, yale, en kateinu me'erev. Ve'yavo eilecha me'boker. Ve'yera eleinu ad arev. Ve'yera eleinu ad arev. Page 225. Malach ve'haguf olach chusa chusa alam halach aneshama halach ve'haguf olach chusa chusa malach הנשמה לך והגוף שלך אדוני עשי למען שמך אתה נורא שמך אדוני עשי למען שמך בעבור כבוד שמך כי יחנו ברחום שמך למען שמך אדוני וסלחתי לעווננו ירבו.
We turn to the middle of 226 and we rise as we anticipate the first time we'll say the 13 attributes of the Holy One.
תעבור על פשע ותמחה השם, כי הום ויתעצב עמו שם. תזין שבתנו ותקשיב מנו מאמר, כי יום ויקרא בשם אדוני, ויעבור אדוני על פניו ויקרא. אדוני, אדוני,
Erachum bechanun, Erech apayim, malachim, nosei avon befesha v'chata v'nakeh.
V'salachti lavonaynu ulchataynu unchaltanu. Salach lanu avinu ki chatanu mechalanu malkinu ki fashanu. Yetzah Adonai tov v'salach v'rav chesed lichol korecha.
May be seated on 227. I want to ask you to close your eyes for a second. Ki hine kachomer b'yad hayotzer. We're about to testify that we feel like a lump of material in the hands of the Creator. It's a very vulnerable piyut or poem because we turn to God and we say in a way that we say using different words throughout the day, God la brit habeit, v'al tefein la yetzer. God, don't look at our behavior. Don't look at our list of deeds because we might not be worthy. Just look at what we've promised to each other. Just look at our commitment. I think liturgy is most powerful when what we are appealing deep in our hearts to God, we hear who might be making that appeal of us. Because there are people in our lives for whom we wield authority, who are in our hands, and who wish and plea, sometimes without merit, that we look beyond the behavior, look beyond the moment, and respond and react based on the larger commitment we share. If we ask that with righteous chutzpah of the Holy One, can we grant it to the one who might be asking that of us? Let's sing towards the beginning and then towards the end on 227.
כי אנחנו בידך חסד נוצר לברית הבית ואל תפן ליצר כי הנה כאבן ביד המסתת ברצותו אוחז וברצותו מחטט הנה אנחנו לידך בחיים וממוטט לברית הבית ואל תפן ליצר.
Last paragraph.
הנה ככסף ביד הצורף ברצותו משגשג וברצותו מצרף. כן אנחנו בידך ממציא למזור טרף לברית הבית ועל תפן היצר.
We turn to page 229. Please rise as we once again recite the 13 attributes.
הורית לנו לומר 13, זכור לנו היום מרית 13, כמו שהודעת לעניו מקדם, כמו שכתוב וירד אדוני בענן ויתעצב עמו שם ויקרא בשם אדוני ויעבור אדוני על פניו ויקרא אדוני אדוני אל רחום וחנון ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת נוצר חסד לאלפים נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקי וסלחת לעווננו ולחטאתנו וחטאנו סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו וחלנו על גיינו כי פשענו יצא אדוני טוב וסלח רב חסד לכל קורך.
Please remain standing. 233, we open the ark for Shema Kolenu. We'll repeat each of the lines in bold after Rabbi Chorny recites them, and one of the tunes we'll actually sing together.
Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu Chus v'rachem aleinu aleinu v'kavel b'rachamim ברחמים ורצון את תפילתנו.
Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu Chus v'rachem aleinu v'kabel ברחמים ורצון את תפילתנו.
השיבנו חדיש ימינו כקדם השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדיש ימינו כקדם חדיש 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 ימינו כקדם חדיש 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 ימינו כקדם חדיש 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 ימינו כקדם תשליכנו מלפניך ברוח קודשך אל תיקח ממנו.
אל תשליכנו מלפניך ברוח קודשך, אל תיקח ממנו.
אל תשליכנו לעת זקנה, ככלות כוחנו אל תעזבנו.
אל תשליכנו לעת זקנה ככלות כוחנו, אל תעזבנו, אל תעזבנו, אל May be seated, and we pick up on the page 234, Ki Anu Amecha.
Eloheinu Elohei Avotaynu Selach lanu Mechalanu Kaper lanu Ki anu Hamecha Ve'ata Eloheinu Hainu Vanecha Ve'ata Avinu Anu Avadecha Ve'ata Adonenu Anu Keholecha Ve'ata Chelkeinu Anu Nachlatecha Ve'ata Goraleinu Anu Tzonecha Ve'ata Roeinu Anu Charmecha Ve'ata Notereinu Anu Peulatecha Ve'ata Yotzreinu Anu Rayatecha Ve'ata Doteinu Anu Segulatecha Ve'ata Keroveinu Anu Amecha Ve'ata Malkeinu Anu Mamirecha Ve'ata Mamireinu Anu Azifanim Ve'atarachum Mechanun Anu Kisheyoref Ve'atarech Havayim Anu Melei Havon Ve'atalei Rachamim Anu Yameinu Kitzel Hover Ve'atahu Shnotecha Lo Hitamu Eloheinu Ve'Elohei Avotaynu Tavo lefanecha tefilateinu V'al titalam mitachinataynu She'in anachnu azayfanim Ukshei horef lomar lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Elohei Avotaynu Tzadikim anachnu Ve'lo chatanu Aval Anachnu Vavoteinu Chatanu.
Please rise, 235.
Ay, 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 Shamnu, Bagadnu, Kaizanu, Dibarnu Dofi, ay, 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 Tafalnu Iker ay 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 Yatsura he's on new lights new Marai new Nihat new Sarar new Avinu Fashai new Tzarar new Kishinu Oref ay 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 Rashanu Shichatnu Tiavnu Tainu Titanu ay 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 ay
Bottom of 236.
Hatayu Zeola Vitalamo Tishrei Kol Chai Hatachovish Kol Chadrei Vaten Vochin Kliot Velev Ein Davar Nelami Meka Vinis Harmi Negedei Necha Uvachain Yihiratzom Evanecha Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu Shetislach lanu al kol chatoteinu v'timcha lanu al kol avonoteinu u'techaper lanu al kol peshainu al chei shechatanu levanecha v'yonetzunu hei shechatanu Al-Chait shechatanu levanecha b'yitzer hara v'al-Chait shechatanu levanecha b'yodeim v'lo yodeim v'al kulam Eloha selichot selach lainu v'chalainu Kaper lanu al-Chait shechatanu
ובחזר, אחרי שלך פת שוחד, אחרי שלך ברצון.
Achit shechatanu lefanecha beinayim ramot Achit shechatanu lefanecha b'yazut metzach Ve'yal lekulam Eloah selichot Selach lanu v'chalanu Kaper lanu Al-Chait shechatanu lefanecha Al-Chait shechatanu lefanecha b'yazut Achit shechatanu lefanecha b'tzumet yad V'al-Chait shechatanu lefanecha b'timhom levav V'yal lekulam Eloah selichot Selach lanu mechalanu Kaper lanu
kulam
Eloah selichot, selach lanu mechalanu, selach lanu mechalanu, kaper lanu.
We turn to 243, the first of many times on Yom Kippur we'll say Avinu Malkeinu. In a fully traditional, unabridged machzor, one of the lines of Avinu Malkeinu is Avinu Malkeinu, our parent, our king, Mena Magefa Minachalatecha. Prevent a plague from your inheritance, from your people. And that line was cut from many modern machzorim, including this one, because it seemed so far-fetched and so medieval. And according to an early liturgical text called Seder Avudat Yisrael, the original version of that line was not even that. The original version of the line was Avinu Malkeinu, our parent, our king, Atzor Magefa Minachalatecha. It was stop a plague, because they were experiencing it. It was such a common thing that in the liturgy was God not prevent it in some far-fetched place, but stop it while it's already with us. And the word stop was changed to prevent, because why ask God to stop a plague if there is no plague? Maybe the most evocative way we could articulate the liturgy of Yom Kippur this year is every time we say this prayer, we add in the line of our own, Avinu Malkeinu Atzor Magefa Minachalatecha. Our parent, our king, please, we ask, we beg, we pray, stop this plague from your people and from all peoples. We're open the ark.
Avinu Malkeinu chatanu lefanecha.
We'll repeat each line after Rabbi Chorny in the bold.
Avinu Malkeinu achazirnu b'tshuva shlema lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu achazirnu b'tshuva shlema lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu shlach refuah shlema lecholei amecha.
Avinu Malkeinu shlach refuah shlema lecholei amecha.
Avinu Malkeinu zochreinu b'zikaron tov lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer chayim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer gulav Yeshua.
Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer gulav Yeshua.
Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer parnasa v'chalkala.
Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer parnasa v'chalkala.
Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer zechuyot.
Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer
Avinu
zechuyot.
Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer slicha umchila.
Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer slicha umchila. We continue silently.
Avinu Malkeinu aseh leman chayim lo lemanenu. Avinu Malkeinu choneinu vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu choneinu vaneinu, ki ein banu ma'asim aseimanu tzedaka v'chesed aseimanu tzedaka v'chesed chesed v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu. Chorneinu v'haneinu. Avinu Malkeinu. Chorneinu v'haneinu. Ki ein banu masim aseimanu. Tzedakah v'chesed aseimanu. Tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu. Chorneinu v'haneinu. Avinu Malkeinu. Chorneinu v'haneinu. Ki ein banu masim. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi.
Amen.
Milmad divra kirutei mihamlich malchutei b'chayichon uvyomeichon uchayetech beit Yisrael v'hagaval v'zman karim v'imeru Amen. Yehi shemei Rabbi mevarach le'olam olamei amaya Yitbarach v'yishabach v'yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitala shemei tekudesh abrichu le'ela le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechmata damiram b'yalma v'imeru Amen. Dit kabal salot hon, vahun hon de Kol Yisrael, kadam avuhon, divishmaya, divishmaya, imeru, Amen. Yehesh lama rabba, min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu, v'hakol Yisrael, v'imeru, Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imeru, Amen.
We remain standing for Aleinu 246.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'teit gedula liotzer bereshit shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chelkeinu kahem v'gor aleinu kechol amonav v'anachnu koreim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech Malchim Hilachim Hakadosh Baruch Hu Shon Tashamai. Kakatu v'toratecha Adonai imloch li'olam va'ed v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz b'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad Ein Od, Ein Od, Ein Od, Ein Od, Ein Od.
May be seated Psalm 27 on page 248. The David and I read.
Little feet on my feet. Lulehem anti lira b'shuv Adonai b'eretz chayim kavel Adonai chazaf yem etzibecha v'kavel Adonai.
Kadisha Tom, Mourner's Kaddish, page 247, a reminder of the double Le'ela. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba
Amen.
v'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayeichon uvyomeichon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael b'gala uv'izman kari v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehi shemei Rabba mevorach le'olam le'omei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudusha b'richu
Berichu.
le'ela le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'yimeru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen.
Amen.
Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru. Amen.
Amen.
Before we conclude with Adon Olam or Yigdal, Rabbi Chorny will surprise us as to which one we'll do. Yigdal. First, Asher Koach to Rabbi Cantor Chorny for beautiful and sweet and soulful davening tonight and all nights. Shkoyach, 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 shkoyach. Just a reminder of the schedule tomorrow because it changed even in the last few days. Hopefully you saw the most recent email. Tomorrow morning starting at 9, the 4 clergy who are hanging out on this holiday, myself, Rabbi Chorny, and Rabbi Schatz and Rabbi Warshawski, will begin all together here on the field in the round. Not in the round? No, not in the round. Not in the round. In the square. In a rhombus. We're doing it in the shape of a rhombus. For a slower and musical harmonic Psuke de Zimra, so all the minyanim will be together in addition to library minyan and corning 8. At around 9:45 or 9:50, the services will split. Library is on the roof, thank you. At around 9:45 or 9:50, Rabbi Chorny and I will go inside to lead the service there for the rest of the day in the sanctuary. Rabbi Schatz, Rabbi Warshawski will lead out here. So if you want to hear Rabbi Schatz's sermon, she'll be giving it here before Yisker. After Musaf is over, I and other clergy will do our annual Q&A. So if you have a doozy of a question, think of it now. I will look forward to answering most of your questions for about an hour after Musaf. Then we'll see how, when that ends, hang out here. It should be a pretty cool day tomorrow, which is unusual for Yom Kippur in the city, which is really nice. So hang out here if you like. And then we join together again at Mincha at 5. That's where we're going to be on the in the round here on the field for our Hama'alot service, creative with meditations and reflections focusing on the themes of Yom Kippur Mincha. Rabbi Chorny will be leading a traditional Mincha in the sanctuary, and Library Minyan will also be doing a Mincha.
Mincha and Corning 8.
Mincha and Corning 8. And then Library Minyan will conclude Yom Kippur on Corning 8, and the other 2 services will all end Ne'ilah here together. So one large crowd for Ne'ilah. So let me say that again. So tomorrow morning.
I'll only add because I see Rabbi Matt Shapiro in the back of the room, and it's a reminder of all the wonderful YLE programming that's been put together this season, and that it was really wonderful to see tinier humans also out here all this evening. Tomorrow, if you want to bring them, while childcare required, pre-sign up. There's a Tat Shabbat service that takes place at 11:30 tomorrow morning on Corning 8, and earlier than that, there's a family service taking place at 10:30, also on Corning 8, so you can find that there.
And Rabbi Shapiro, is there also High Holiday Lounge tomorrow? Where and when?
Noon, right?
12 o'clock indoors in Pilch Hall if you want to hang out and talk Torah and ideas with Rabbi Shapiro for part or all of Musaf. We're going to conclude with Yigdal on page 250.
And then vegetarian cholent for the
Oh, cholent.
tomorrow night.
Stay away from the kishka.
Yigdal Elohim chai v'yishtabach nimsa v'heinei tzavitziuto echad v'ein yachid ki yichudo ne'elam ne'gam etzof le'yachduto ein lo demut haguf v'eino guf lo narach elav kedushato kadmon lechol davar asher nivra rishon ve'ein reshit le'reshito hino adon olam v'chol notzar yorei gedulato malchuto shefa nevuato nitano el anshi segulato litifarto lo kam Yisrael k'moshe yod navi umavi tzet emunato Torah temet natan lihamoel hayan nevio neiman beito lo yachalifael v'lo yamir dato liholamim lizulato sofei ve'yodeya Sitareinu mavid lesof davar v'kad bato gomel ish chesed k'nifalo notein lerashara kirishato yishlach leketz yamin mishichainu liftot mechakeketz Yeshuato Meitim Yechayel B'rov Chasto Baruch Atayad Shem Tehilato Meitim Yechayel B'rov Chasto Baruch Atayad Shem
Good Jantev, everyone. Have a sweet and easy and a meaningful fast.